Ash, end of season one of the Mortgage Broker broadcast. How are you?
How am I? How am I in general, or how am I for the end of season one?
Well, how are you? Well,
I'm
both,
fine.
both. I'm
Both.
interested, obviously, both sides of things.
Very good, mate. Very excited and good. I'm happy to be here. This has been recorded on the Jubilee weekend. We're both
Absolutely.
working on days that aren't supposed to be working on. But I'm really excited. I'm really cool to jump on here and talk with you and your listeners about kind of season one. We've done it, and now where we're going to take it as well because it's a season two. I'm excited for all of that as well. So yeah, really
Yeah.
happy to just be here. How about you, mate? How are you? You feeling
Yeah,
tired
good.
after all these interviews?
No, no. Exhausting being a podcast host, mate, but you know what that's like. So, but all
Oh yeah,
worth it. I absolutely love doing this and I love meeting with people. I love talking about it. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that
yeah,
anyway to explain what's going to happen moving forward. But we are at the end of season one. We are sort of it's sort of 13 months into the podcast. We started in April 2021. So yeah, and here we are, like you say, on Jubilee weekend talking about the Mortgage Broker broadcast. So it doesn't get more exciting than that.
exactly. Like some people are on holiday, and here we are in our respective sheds in the parts of the country.
Exactly. But the funny thing is, this is going to go out pretty much after the Jubilee weekend, but
Mm,
I'm quite surprised in how many people that I'm working, you're working today. I'm quite surprised on how many people are working. So they're
yeah,
not taking advantage of the Jubilee weekend. But I am going to be celebrating the Jubilee later, so I'm not going to be disrespectful to
to the
Her
royals.
Majesty and the 70 years. Yes. And we
My
won't get
wife
onto that
is
topic.
my wife. We have to celebrate because my wife is not. My wife's half English, half Greek, but she's like one of these people that moved to England because it was like the American dream. It's like that. Like she lives in
Right.
Cyprus and it's all about being in England, and so everything royal, everything British, teas and crumpets, she's just obsessed with it all. So we have it, and even though I'm really not that fast, she's like, yeah, that's what we're doing. So yeah, we're definitely doing something on the Jubilee Day.
To be fair, I'm with you on that. That I'm not nothing against the Royals, just not bad. But funny you should say that with Freddie then, because obviously she's got some allegiance. Because Prince Philip, he was Greek,
He was
wasn't
Greek, I
he?
think. Yeah, he was
Yeah,
Greek. Yeah,
yeah,
he was Cypriot. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, she's like anything traditional English, and people can't understand it. So she moved over to England, and she's like, everyone goes, "Would you love to live in Cyprus?" And she's like, "No, like I want to." Like she's like Mary Poppins, like everything, and it's so not what England is, Like it's so like a caricature version, I guess, of. But this is probably the once in a time where, like, if we didn't have our 18-month-old son, she was originally going to do the Jubilee Street Party. She was going to set it all up and do it in our where we live in our like cul-de-sac.
Wow.
And I was like, don't do that. They ain't got the time. Hard work. You'll be that mug that's doing it. That everyone else is like, yeah, okay, we'll turn up.
Yeah,
And then we'll be
yeah.
cleaning up. So no.
I am fortunate that in our village we are. It is very. If you went outside right now, we stepped outside of the shed as you talked about. Then yeah, it is very red, white, and blue out there. So
It is where
definitely,
we live. All of the
yeah,
green is, yeah, but it's good. It's nice. But I didn't even
absolutely.
know that it was a thing. Like I didn't know that we were at bank holidays. I knew Jubilee. But I didn't know we were not. So the reason why I'm talking to you today, I didn't even know that it was a bank holiday. Like I didn't. I just thought it was a normal day. I do that all the time. I'm terrible with bank holidays.
But the thing is, actually, so you work, you're self-employed, so you can work when you want. So the bank, it's a bank holiday. You could have a bank holiday tomorrow. Well, it's Saturday anyway, but like you could have a bank
You
holiday
ever have
tomorrow.
a bank holiday? Like sometimes you take days off. All you brokers here, I'm sure like when you're a broker and stuff, I know it's me. You go self-employed. You go, I'm going to go self-employed so I can have, work-life balance. And all that happens is you have all more work and no balance because when it's you're never really off. I don't know about you. You just never
No,
switch off. It's just all the time, constant. But that's kind of par for the course, and it's quite fun. But yeah, hard. I know Anish put a post up on Facebook yesterday saying that he went away to the US and he's got now like a like an operations manager. And I mean, you've got business with your staff,
right.
so you probably experienced this. But he was like, I've got this operations manager who's had him for a year. He said it's the first holiday that I've been able to like go away and just switch off for a week in 9 years. He's like to actually just be like, okay, you can deal with it. You know what I mean? It's
Do you
mad.
you need to do that? To be fair, mate, I do get that, and there are. It's like one of my brokers, like I've got a few people off at the moment, broker wise, and I don't mind them putting my detail. They put my contact details on their out of office because they prep the client. So any urgent emergencies, I don't mind picking up and helping and dealing with. So just so then the broke, so like they can go away and try and relax as much as you can, thinking, do you know what? If anything urgent comes up, I don't need to check my emails because Craig will contact me. And I really reluctantly would do that in an emergency, but sometimes you have to. But I think it's just important that you've got to have that time away from the office and just switch off and just not worry too much about the clients. And I think it just goes down to preparation with your clients. I think, yes, sometimes you've got needy clients and it's the end of the world when something happens and they need to speak to you kind of thing. But 99 times out of 100, the client will, if they know that you're looking after them when you're in work and you need that time off, people do respect that the brokers have time off as well. So I tend to find that clients will just wait until the broker comes back, but you just need to have that switch off time, don't you? So I'm glad that Anisha's getting that and gone overseas and gone to the States. So
I think you create a rod for your own back with a lot of this stuff. You know, if you allow yourself, I think brokers, especially, I know I've done it as a consultant, but I've also done it as a broker. I'm sure you've done it, mate, when you were like employed and self-employed and your own business and maybe with staff, is that I think we initially think, I know, I've got to give you, if a good boss, a good client, a good employee, whatever, it means you get access and you create a rod for your own back where if you are known to answer WhatsApp messages at 11 o'clock, then they will do that. But if you don't, then they won't. It's really, really weird. And then I've noticed that I've got a client right now I'm working with, and it's a similar thing where I've said, oh, you can send me WhatsApps. If something comes into your mind, send me a WhatsApp. I'm not going to look at it. You can send me it. But the problem is I've looked at a few of them and now it's like, well, you didn't respond. You haven't responded. And I'm like, oh, and it's not their fault. And this is the problem with clients. It's not their fault. It's our fault because you've broken the rule that you put in place. And now that I think it's really hard as a broker with that. Whereas some of the best ones I've seen are like, I work between this hour and contact me between this and this, and that's it. And they still do really well. In fact, they do really, really well. It's crazy.
I think you're absolutely right. It's just structured to client expectations, and it goes back to under promising, over delivering. So when you look at how you set things up with the client, and if you if you answer your WhatsApp at 11:30 at night, then that's the client, and the client will then expect you to be able to do that constantly. The best ones I've seen is where they're automated. The work hours, like you said, so between this hour and this hour, this hour and this hour, and if I do get a chance to pick it up outside that time, I will respond accordingly. But they know, and then they've set up like automatic responses on various things to then sort of say, seeing your message, I'll pick it back up at 9 o'clock in the morning when I'm back, kind of thing. So they've set up automated stuff on there as well. So which I think really that does really work, because then you're acknowledging from a client, you've acknowledged the client saying, look, got your message and I'll get back to you tomorrow. That's all the client wants. They just want to understand that you've seen it, or it's been going to be picked up, or if no contact that's not good from a client expectation point of view.
Absolutely. I have that with Calendly. I use Calendly to book everything. And I know you use the Microsoft equivalent one. And a lot of brokers use these kind of booking links. One thing I've taken up is now, trying to, but if someone books in for Calendly and they get the automated, like, thanks so much for booking in. But what I also do is send them like an email myself. So I'll go, hi, just saw you booked in. This is me directly. I just wanted to, say thanks for booking in. I'm looking forward to speaking to you. If you've got anything you can send me before, please do. And what that's done is then gets them to message me back, because it increases the turn up rate, the show up rate, because these automated ones have been like a bit like I felt like that was something missing. And if you've got it, then you've just gone, okay, I have had contact. I've done contact. It takes me 5 minutes, and it's just a very basic like templated email. But that's saved. That's kept, because the show up rate, especially with brokers, as you said, if people will just want contact, and if you get like a this is an automated reply, thank you for booking in, we're looking forward to speaking to you, it's not the same as if it's like then you get some message from the advisor or from the consultant or whoever you're working with going, hi, I'm really looking forward to it myself, but these are the things I really need, so could you get them to me before, and if you have any questions, let me know beforehand. So that's definitely little hacks. So, should we talk about this? Because we said we're going to
I
do
know,
this in
yeah.
short, and then we've had a little chat.
Yeah. I was just thinking to myself then thinking, just typical. It is, but it's good stuff. Like it is actually relevant. So
It's
we are
valuable.
sort of, but the thing was, the whole idea of this is, yeah, just for you and I to have a chat about Mortgage Broker Broadcast, what's gone on, what we've learned for the past sort of 13, 14 months we've been doing the show, and sort of a bit of a break explaining what's happening now, and then moving forward what the show's going to look like. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about that. I'm excited to recap because I think sometimes it's very difficult in the world that we live that people don't review and recap. And then so when we talked about this and doing end of season one brief podcast to reflect on the podcast and then look at what's happening moving forward, it just made me time to reflect and just really appreciate what's gone on in the last 13 months, which is just insane. It is just insane what's happened.
It is crazy. Like we've been working together for well longer than that, but it's mad really how this has kind of morphed into something that, and not just that, but everything else around it. You know, me and you know the things of well, Mortgage Broker, which is part of the thing about the season 2 kind of move, is, you know, this idea of what Mortgage Broker Broadcast is, and now the scope that you as a consultant, as a coach, as a provider can give to these advisors. None of this was even formed when we first started speaking. You know, when we first started doing this, it was crazy. So it's been amazing. And obviously I'm the guy that edits. People don't realize this. I'm the one that's like editing it and clipping it up. And so like when I message people in who've been on the show, I'm like, oh, would you like to come on my show? They're like, do you know who I am? I'm like, yeah, I literally know everything about you because I've watched. You've had some great guests, some awesome guests.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing with it is when you look back at the guests that I've had and the topics we've talked about, and people, what I love about it is that people have come onto the podcast with with a sort of loose agenda, just aim about just to have a conversation, just have a chat. It might be about a particular product, it might be about them, we might have a chosen subject, but the thing with it is that everybody that's come onto the podcast has come with no agenda and just let us chat and discuss, which is not. I forget sometimes. Well, I forget quite a lot, but I forget sometimes that for somebody to come to a podcast for the first time, especially when it's video as well, not
Yeah.
just audio, you just really take, because this is something like I've got 2 podcast shows. So I've got this one, which is like the broker one, where, and then we've also got a business to consumer one with the mortgages, money, and more one. So for me now, podcasts, I think we'll be up to about 200 soon. I think podcasts that I'll have been on or shows I've recorded. So I'm gone past the habit forming stage now. I know what I'm doing. I know about hosting and things like that. But when somebody comes onto the podcast for the first time, you forget how, because you just take for granted, it's just a
Terrifying.
podcast. Yeah, we're recording. Yeah, we're going to have a chat. We're going to record about it. And for certain people, it like scares the life out of them. And they're just thinking, well, can we have an agenda? Yeah, we can, but we might go off tangent a little bit. And that's the thing. But that's the beauty of it, because people have come to that, really let themselves let me take control of that, really, which is quite unique for a lot of the people that's been on the show, and just really trust me to be the host and go, do you know what? It's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. You're absolutely fine. It's all recorded, pre-recorded. Like you say, we edit it, you clip it. Like it's all done in safety and comfort. So there's nothing to sort of too stress about. But I think that once you start, but what I find is once you sort of a couple of minutes after they start talking about themselves, they're then off. It's like there's no stopping them now. People love talking about themselves, which is a good thing. But I think the thing is as well is that I appreciate how honest people have been and guests on the show and just really had their heart on the sleeve from discussions and had no sort of barriers and really sort of put their true face out there, which is quite unique. You look at everything that we do, and that there's quite a lot of faces and hats and heads that we put on for certain things. But for most people, for all people, everybody that's been on the podcast, have just let it go and just trusted me, and we've just ended up having an absolute amazing time being a host because I've got to meet some and talk to some amazing people.
I think you're very right as well on the concept of like you forget and you take it. We all do this. We take for granted that when you start podcasting and you do it a lot, it feels like normal. I don't know about you. Even things like the StreamYard links, and make sure you have headphones and make sure your audio is set right and make sure you're in an environment, and you just become normal to the point where, and I'm really open, like to the point when you send it to somebody who's not been on the shows and like, and they go, I can't get in. You're thinking, really? It's really easy. Just do this, 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 this. But when I cast my mind back to like my first ever podcast interview on Alex's show years ago now, I was terrified. Like I had no idea. And I probably spent an hour and a half before prepping. I remember like sitting and being like, I remember he going, you're really nervous. I was like, yep, I'm really nervous. And so it is really nerve wracking. And what's been really lovely is giving people, I mean, I'm a podcast guy. That's what I love to do. It's my passion. And shows like yours give people, normal, everyday people, a chance to kind of feel that exposure and feel that kind of, well, the content. And it's really great because some people might come on your show and they go, you know what, actually, that was really good. I really enjoyed it. And then they might start making their own videos and they might start because you need that push forward. And that's what I love about your show is that you've had people like me, you've had people like Dan, you've had people like Alex, you've had all these very, very people who are very comfortable in this environment, but you've also brought on people who don't know. And that's what I think brokers want to hear from, because that's probably more like you who are listening. You're probably the person going, I'm not really sure if I can do this or the agenda. So it's really served a massive purpose, I think, of the last like kind of, 14 months, whatever. It's really been lovely to see. And I think it's unique because there are other, podcasts in the niche, but yours is very unique because it's brokers. I've said this before, it's for brokers, by brokers. It works. And it's just, I think it's been really, really great to watch.
And I'm glad you feel that way, because the feedback as well. I'll come on to the feedback in a second, but when I look back at the first ones that I was doing and looking at the video when we were recording the video as well at the same time, I just love the way that I look back and you think, and sometimes you sort of cringe and thinking, oh my God, look at how much we sort of like developed. We've changed the branding, we've changed the setup, had 50,000 different cameras and different angles and different mics and different lighting and everything else. But it's okay. Like it's absolutely fine to do that. You're not going to get it perfect from day one. You're going to develop and you're going to evolve. It's the same as the way that I put it to brokers is that you look at the first ever mortgage appointment you did, your first ever client that sat in front of you when you became a broker, and then look at what you do now. Now it's just second nature. You will just like before you would have prepped for hours, you'd have made sure you got everything you would have done everything to a T. Whereas now it's like you've got your fact find, you'll do it, you'll just do it second nature. You don't even need to think about it, what you do right now, because you've got the process in your head. So yeah, so and feedback, like you said, and the whole point of talking about the podcast and ending up sort of season 1 really and looking forward to season 2 is that quite a lot of the feedback and a lot of feedback that we've had regarding the podcast is that, we've had some amazing guests, and yes, there've been some real sort of a lot of learning and education for a lot of mortgage brokers out there. But it was then the feedback that I've had quite often is they wanted to listen to my thoughts and viewpoints on things a lot more. And when you're hosting, and that's not me being egotistic or big-headed, that is just because when
that's
you're
just
hosting,
the feedback. There's nothing wrong with that. Is the feedback. That's what I've had from people about you as well. So yeah,
exactly. I think that when you are hosting a podcast, it's far more difficult than it is being a guest, because there is no agenda, and you've got to think about what people are picking up and think about what people are talking about. And I do listen. I'm not always thinking, oh, what I've got to say next. I'm worried about what my next thing is I'm going to say. I'm interested in listening to what the guest has to say, because that can be too easy sometimes as a host. You can ask a question and then not even listen to what the guest's saying because you're too busy thinking about what you're going to ask next, where you've got to, with this, the whole point, that's not the point of it. You've got to listen. I'm genuinely interested in what people have got to say and the take on that. And I think, so the feedback was that they just wanted more of discussions to a certain extent, but really more of my viewpoint and my take on being a mortgage broker, being a business owner, being self-employed, going from corporate to setting your own firm up, social media, like we've got loads of things to sort of like talk about. Mindsets thrown in a little bit, talking about that sort of thing as well. And what I don't get to do is, so we sort of took that feedback on board, you and I, and they're thinking now, well, how do we evolve this more? So yes, we're still going to have guests on the podcast, absolutely, because I think that's great. And the conversations, I absolutely love the conversations and the people that I meet. But then also as well, we're going to mix that up with solo podcasts for me to maybe talk about somebody that was on the podcast the week before and just really sort of delve into that a little bit more and having my own viewpoint on it. Or then talking about being a broker, all the topics that come up from being a mortgage broker, and then just keeping that. I promise we're going to keep this content to the solo ones to about 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
That's what we talk about. And that's the plan, what we're going to look to moving forward on the back of feedback from people that are listening.
Yeah, that has been, as you said, the overwhelming feedback. And I think it's the overwhelming feedback from, which is lovely, is, as you say, like getting people on is all really, really great. But what we've noticed is more and more people want to hear from you, which is where the things like the consulting that you've already announced now has come from, because people are going, well, yeah, it's great, but what do you know? And I think we all know you know a lot, so it's time to really share that. And I think it's where the show naturally wants to move to. So giving you kind of a stage as well as giving guests as well has been great. And that's why we decided, to originally it wasn't a season, we originally were just going to do an ongoing podcast. And that's what we were chatting in our last session. I'm saying like, well, let's cap it off as season 1 and then let's move to season 2 with the new framework and see how that goes. And I think it'll do really well because it's what we're listening to, what you guys all want, which is more practical information. That's what we were saying, isn't it? It's this idea. And one of the things that we were talking about in our session, and this is something that comes up a lot in podcasting, is there comes a point where interviews are wonderful and they're really good. They're really good for the host. A lot of the time, they're really good to learn because you're getting like direct feedback from a person in front of you. But for the listener, it can be great, but it can also be quite hard because you've got to sieve through to find the value that applies to your business or to your situation. Whereas with the solo shows, we can take something very specific and literally do a how-to on how you did it. So what did you look for when you hired your first person? What did you do? And most of it's about what you did, isn't it? We're not trying to say what you should do. It's more what you have done. And, how do you scale a business? How do you open a wealth department? How do you, all these things, as opposed to bringing somebody on and I was having to find those clues. Now, we still think we should have interviews because I think they're very good for all the reasons we just said as well. 1, it's good for you. And 2, it's good for people to be platformed and have that exposure and that experience in a safe environment. So that's something that the podcast has been and will continue to be. But I think we also need to, we're going to definitely push you to the limelight as much. He's not you're up for it, but I'm going to be pushing it more. Like, you've got to keep doing it because I think it's what people want. It's what I get asked when I speak to brokers and because they know I work with you. And if I'm on a discovery call, often they'll be like, oh yeah, like, well, Craig does this, Craig does that. And really no one really knows what you do because there's not much info out there, but they all know from the little bits that you've said. And everyone says, I'd like to hear more from you. So I'm excited. I'm excited for it. Yeah, should be good.
Definitely. And like I said, that's not me with it. It's just absolutely, what I'm like. I don't have an ego or anything like that. It's just about helping brokers become brokers or brokers become better brokers. And all it is sharing my experiences and talking about my thoughts on various topics. It's not saying that I'm not, like you say, I'm not the person to sort of say, you should be doing this or you should be doing that or you need to do this, because it's not the way that I work. All we're talking about is my experiences and my thoughts on various topics. So yeah, it's like, how do you set up a wealth pension investment arm or business? How like you say, how do you recruit your first advisor? How do you go from being a part of a business to then setting your own business, mortgage broker business up and things like that? So we've got loads to talk about, absolutely. But I think, and like you say, it's going to be very much on point of three things. These are three things. These are three things. We try and keep them within the sort of 15 minutes, 20 minute most, just to then have yeah, just to keep the content relevant and keep it. But like I said, I don't want to lose the fact that we still want to have guests on the podcast, absolutely, and things with it. As a mortgage broker, being a mortgage broker, you understand how you have to adapt, and the world is forever evolving from that point of view. So we're going to get people on that are changing the landscape and being brokers and changing, whether that's fintech or whether that's anything else that's sort of very broker led. But yeah, I'm just excited about having a new season and just changing up a little bit and refreshing what we've been doing, really.
So what we're going to do then, just to give you guys the nuts and bolts, I want to make sure we tie this up for half an hour. We said we're going to do 15 minutes and then literally like me and you just chat forever. We should just do a podcast together. And
Don't say that, Ash. I've got to already. No, because I think that
it's just like no. So what we're going to do for everyone who's listened to this and to understand this, so you're going to take a break. We're taking a step back. So this is the last episode for 4 weeks. We think probably is going to be about 4 weeks.
Yep.
It's going to give us time to. You might have already seen the rebrand happening of the go into the blue and black and white as opposed to the original red, white, and blue. And so we're moving. We're going to kind of rebrand everything, finish the rebrand, get some of these episodes ready for you. And then we're going to be coming back. Hopefully, we said, what was the date that we said? I'm going to my
8th
calendar.
of July.
I think it's the 6th, was it?
Is it the 6th of July?
Let me bring
We're
my
well
diary
prepared,
up.
aren't we? Well prepared.
Oh, it's all right. I've got everything here. It is the 6th. I'm really good. Yeah, 6th of July.
6th of July.
So
well
6th
done.
of July is when we're looking to launch the first episode of season 2. And that'll be, and what we've said is we're going to heavily focus on you for the first maybe 4 to 6 episodes. So there won't be any interviews for a couple of episodes. And then we'll start bringing more people back in as we kind of list through, just to answer some of the questions people are wanting. One thing I'd love to know from people listening to this, and I'm sure Craig would be like, if you have a question that you would like answered on an episode, where would the best place for them to submit that question to you be, Craig? Because obviously the whole idea of this, we're opening this up to go, look, what do you want to know? We've got a load of questions that we know come up, but if people want to keep submitting a question, like or could you answer this on an episode, where would be the best place for them to send a message to you? Just on LinkedIn?
Say LinkedIn, yeah. Direct message me on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the easiest thing, definitely.
Because I think that'd be really good. And that'd be really great for you guys. And if you do that, if you want your name shouted out on it, then that's absolutely fine as well. Because that's type of stuff that I like to do in my shows is if someone submits a question, I'll say, thank you so much. This is from blah, blah, blah. And they've asked this question. Obviously, if you don't want your name shouted out, because it's like, how do I sack somebody who's not very good? Then just say, please, could you keep this anonymous? But I think it's
first names only. We could do first names only.
Yeah, first names only. There you go. But yeah, that's where we're going with it. Any questions at all, mate? Anything we missed out?
No, not at all. I think, like you say, you've given clarity on what's happening now. I'm just buzzing about what's going to happen, what we're going to do on the season 2. But reflecting back on season 1, what a rock and roll the time it's been for the last 30 months. Absolutely loved it. I loved every single episode of it, and talking to people, meeting people, following up with them after I've had some great relationships, business relationships have been created on back of the podcast. So there's quite a few people that I work with on a one-to-one basis, and we work with suppliers, third-party suppliers that as a firm that have been on the podcast as well. So it's been a real sort of great journey over the last 13 months, and I'm just looking to the next bit, mate.
Me too. I want to say I've absolutely loved it as well. Like, it's been a real, like, me and you started working together. This role that I have with you, working with you, is completely new to me and you. It was the first time we'd done it, and being your producer I've been just the same. It's been just as kind of roller coaster for me at the sub in the guy in the dark room that no one knows, but it's been really, really great. And so everybody's feedback and everybody's kind of support of the show for the last 14 months has just been like definitely a big highlight of my year last year, which was really lovely. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's listening for that as well, because it really was like, because you don't know, we signed up and we're like, let's do this, let's try this thing, and it's really worked. But it, it's nice to know that people actually enjoy the stuff that me and you slave away at making.
Yeah. No, definitely. And Ash, thanks you so much for your guidance and
there you go. Pitch. You don't have to do that. No. We're
I'm saying thank you. I'm not pitching.
No.
I'm not pitching for you. I'm
It's
saying
fine.
thank you.
It's
a bank holiday, and you're helping me. You're recording with me the last episode of season 1 that will be out on next Wednesday, which will
Amazing.
be the 8th of
Mate,
June.
let's run it out.
Excellent. Thanks very much.